Hi there, I'm going to show you today how to make Hippocrates soup. And this is enough soup for 3 days, at least for me. And it's enough for me to have it 3 times a day plus a little bit for cooking. Okay? And there's the ingredients. We start with tomatoes, potatoes, onion, leek, garlic, celery, parsley, and celery root. And I'm going to show you what I've got. I have these already washed and ready to cut up. I like to do them somewhat coarsely, but not too coarse because I find it took too long to cook. So I've got little potatoes, and I just am going to run through it that way. You can see they're just thin little chunks. I like that. I'm not going to do them all for the sake of this. I'll cut them up afterwards. Tomatoes, same thing. I don't worry about coring it. That'll all come out later when we mill the soup. And you can see, just kind of big, small big chunks. Does that make sense? Tomato, onion, same thing. You can see, I just like to go through one way, and I go through the other way. I like my onion pieces just a little bit smaller because they do go through the mill a little easier than there. And then I want to show you two different things about these garlic. This is 1 clove, and that's a whole bulb. And look, they're the same size. So if I'm at the store and I can get them like this, I do because it's a lot easier. But if this is all you can get is a whole bulb, I want to show you what to do with it. And this is one of the things I figured out, is that I don't have to stop and peel every one because that's what the mill's going to do, remove that. All I do is cut off that root system down at the bottom, and I'll just cut off this big core at the top. You see it's kind of coming apart. I can just get rid of some of those loose papers. I don't need those in there. But I'm just going to take all those and toss them in, because all that rest of that paper stuff will come off when I do the mill. I'm using the celery. I'm using 3 skinny little stalks, 3 little parsley stems. And I'm just going to break those stems off, throw those in. My celery, I can just, you can see, I'm just chopping quickly through those. Nothing fancy. That all goes in. Now leek, I wanted to show you something about a leek because they're kind of tricky. And I've had to learn through a little trial and error how to work with these. So I cut the roots off down here. And then I get rid of some of this coarse stuff. Maybe, I guess it's all right to use it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't like the flavor of it. It made the soup just a little, I can't even use the word strong tasting. I just didn't like the taste of the soup with those dark green leaves in it. Then you cut down the middle of the stem of what's left. So now what's interesting, the reason why you want to do this is because there's a lot of hidden dirt. I don't know if you can see that in there. A lot of dirt gets down inside those leaves. So I'm going to put them, I've already washed these by tap water, and then what I do is I rinse all my vegetables in the distilled water before I put them in the soup. All those other vegetables I'd already rinsed, but I wanted you to see how I do this. I'm going inside each of those leaf sections and getting the dirt out of there. I think not getting this washed well enough can sometimes lead to your soup spoiling because you've introduced dirt into your soup. So there, I've gone through all the leaves, separated them, got that dirt out, and then I can just chop through that just like I would the onion, like that. All right, and then now this will all go into the soup when we're not filming, but I want you to see. This is called a celery root. This is actually what the stalks of celery grow off of, but this is a specific vegetable that was bred for the root. It's all knobby. It's kind of hard to get in there. I used to fight with that and try and save every little scrap of celery root. It just took too long. It took me half an hour just for that one vegetable. And you know, we're too busy with this to be working a half an hour on that. So I've got a little bowl, and I just start trimming off some of that hard outside root. I found out it didn't taste good if I kept too much of that fiber into the soup. So I trim away. I make sure I get rid of all that dirt that's caught in between those gnarly root sections. And just keep trimming that off. So you can see. There we go. Giving that a rinse. I'm sorry, I'm just going faster than the camera here. Good. And then just like all the other vegetables, I go through and trim that. And I'll just chop this up like the others and throw it in. So I'll come back in a minute when it's done. Alright, I finished cutting up all the vegetables. You can see it always looks so nice when they're in there. Now this didn't take as much water as I thought it would. It only took 2 quarts, but I am going to put a little bit more in. We'll take it to the stove. And I'm going to set it on high. Here, I'm just going to put another 1/2 quart in. So that's 2.5 quarts. And that's just enough. You can see it's pretty full, and it's enough water to cover. And that'll get the texture that I like when I mill it. So it'll take a few minutes to come to a boil. When it does, I'll put the lid on, and then I'll turn it down to very low, and I'll set the timer for 2 hours. So we'll come back in 2 hours after it's simmered, okay? Thank you. So our soup is cooked for 2 hours now, and it's cooled off a little bit. It's still hot, but it's been off the stove for maybe ½ an hour so that I can handle it. And this is what it looks like. It's just, you know, just a loose soup, but I use all of that and I put it through the mill. Now this is called a food mill. There's always a lot of questions about that. And this is kind of a neat little tool that makes it possible to get the fiber out of our soup and yet still get some of the pulp from it without the fiber. And it comes apart. See, there's a section here, and there's these little blades that are down inside the bottom. This one, it's OXO brand, O-X-O, and it comes with 3 of those blades, and I use the middle-sized one. It creates the texture of soup that I like best. The fine was a little too much, and the coarse was too much. So there you go. So I scoop water and vegetables and everything right in there, just like that, several scoops. I'll do one more. And then I just start going around. And usually I go 3 to the right and back 1 or 2 to the left. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. And what this does, when you're going to the right, is sliding over the pieces of vegetable and starting to push them through the grid work. And then when you come back, it's scraping it back up so that you can get a fresh press. So I press it down for 2 or 3. If you keep going, at some point it doesn't press anymore, and that's why you only do it 3 times. If you do it more than that, it's not as effective. So then I back up, clean it up a little, then come back around, keep scraping. And I do that numerous times per scoop. And you can see the moisture is getting pressed out of the material, and it's getting drier. It never actually gets dry, but you can see the moisture. And if you tip it up, you can see that's where some of the pulp is coming through without the fiber. So I'm just doing this to show you. I don't usually clean it off until I'm done doing the whole pot, but I just wanted you to see how that pulp is coming through. And then this is the texture of the soup. My whole pot is going to end up being like this. It's a thin soup, and yet it has some material going through there, so it's not clear. But it's just a texture that I enjoy that, and I find it's much easier to drink from a mug instead of from a bowl, because I don't want to have using a spoon just to slurp up that watery stuff. I just put it in a mug and drink it, and I'm done. And I like to have enough soup, not only to have 3 bowls of it a day or 3 mugs of it a day, but I also like it for cooking. It's delicious when I want to do broccoli or cabbage or, I don't know, whatever other vegetables, spinach that I can find. I put some of this in for my cooking liquid, and it's very tasty. It takes a little getting used to this soup. When I first made it, it didn't taste that good to me, but now that my taste buds are changing and I've been able to get rid of a lot of sodium out of my body from eating properly now, that it actually tastes very good to me. And the reason why I have it 3 times a day, most people only have it twice, is it's a diabetic protocol, and you don't have the oatmeal for breakfast. Instead, you have the soup. But there's nothing wrong with having soup. And when I started all this, when I started Gerson 11 months ago, I had a lot of back pain over my kidneys, and I don't have that anymore. So it's made a difference. Now today, I'd run out of soup already today, and I'm kind of late getting it done. But I will have it before I go to bed tonight, because if I don't, I'll wake up tomorrow with back kidney pain. So it's very helpful. If you haven't started making the soup, you need to. If you haven't milled it, it's not the end of the world, but it is the proper way to do it. And I just wanted you to see how that's done. Thank you. I hope this has been helpful. All right. Okay. Well, we're down here at the end. I've done the rest of the pot, and I'm at the very last of what I'm squishing around here at the end. And I wanted to show you, I forgot to show you this in the other video, and that is when I've gotten to the point where this has had all the liquid pushed out, and I've gotten most of the pulp pushed through, and this really all that's left is fiber. What I do is I just scoop that up, and I did this all along the way. You can see here I've got a little pile of fiber that I've been removing, and this is typical. Any batch I'll end up with about this much fiber, which would make sense if I'm making the same amount every time. I just scoop that out. Once I've worked and worked it quite a bit, and I can see that it's just fiber. Now I'm cleaning off the bottom and getting all that good pulp there, which is nice. It has a nice consistency to it. I like having a little something there. It's your preference. I don't like mine too thick. And if you like yours a little thicker, you can remove some of the liquid and save that liquid for cooking also. You'd want to save that. Don't toss that out. There's good nutrients in that liquid. Or you could put a few more potatoes in, because actually potatoes will make it thicker too. And then this is how I save it. You know what? It's making me nervous. I'm going to get my funnel. There we go. I have a funnel, and that helps me. And I have this nice big 2-quart jar. There. And I have enough left here. This will go into another quart jar, and that'll be my 3 quarts that I made. Pretty much it works out that however much water I put in is how much I end up with, even though I have the vegetables. But it all works out in the end. And I'm going to have myself a nice mug of broth tonight, just for a treat. Thank you. Nice and fresh.